Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Sunday Funday from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope that you've had a wonderful weekend. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and thank you for carving out a few moments to spend some time with us on this beautiful Sunday morning. Hello to Shy Gal and Marie Jubenville and Mimi D and Trey Morrissey and Angela Robbins and Kraken Studio and Laura Waldy. Thank you so much for gifting the membership. That's so kind of you, and thank you for kicking us off. And I see a lot of names I don't entirely recognize. I hope there's some new people with us today. If there are some new folks, let me introduce myself really quickly. My name is Joshua Ritter. I'm a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for just over 10 years. I left to go into private practice as a defense attorney. And this is Courtroom Confidential, where we try to present to you both sides of the courtroom. And this is Sunday Funday. And this is becoming one of our favorite things that we do, where every Sunday we take voice messages that you've left us throughout the week. And you've left us a bunch, and they're all really good. And I continue to be impressed by everyone. So congrats and applause to everybody for the wonderful questions. And if you're feeling left out, leave us a message and we'll be answering those in the weeks to come. So we always appreciate new folks, and we're hearing from people all around the world. Hello to everybody in the chat. Hello to everybody watching us on X and on Facebook. Please stay to the end. We have some announcements for you that you're going to want to hear. And if you haven't already, I'm going to ask really quickly, do me one quick favor, and that is like this episode, subscribe if you haven't already, share this with someone you think might enjoy it. But let's get into it. All right. Who is going to kick us off this morning? I think I may have done this right. Here we go. Tell me if you can hear this.
Hi Josh, Nicole from Auckland, New Zealand here. Absolutely love your show. My question for you is, what, if anything, do you think Donna Adelson and her defense team will use in their appeal? Thank you.
Nicole, starting us off from Auckland, New Zealand. Let's put you on the map. I love that. An international caller to start us off this morning. And you ask a very... a question that's on a lot of people's minds. There's Auckland, first of all. Let's zoom out for a second. I want to make sure. I want to make sure where I'm talking to. All right, Donna Adelson. She has filed her initial kind of motions for a new trial. People want to know, what is she going to try to appeal? This gives us a pretty good idea of what are the issues that her attorneys think are important. And I'll say this. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You can appeal anything. I mean, when you're asking the question of what can she appeal, you can make nearly any argument you want to make. It's just whether or not the Court of Appeal will even entertain hearing that argument and whether or not it will be persuasive. But it came down to a few issues that they outlined recently on filed on September 15th. They filed this motion for a new trial. And here's some of the issues they brought up. First of all, juror misconduct. Now, you could see this coming from a mile away if you already knew about juror number 7 taking to TikTok. This is a new phenomenon that we are experiencing, where jurors on high-profile cases take to their social media and they get themselves a little bit of a following. We saw that in the Karen Reed case. There was a juror that I know that came forward and was pretty active on Twitter for a while. And now this juror number 7, who identified herself as the foreperson, went on TikTok and left a few lengthy TikToks talking about her feelings on the case and everything else. And nothing illegal about that. But if you're the prosecution, it's going to give you fits. You're going to be buying Tums in bulk from Walmart because you just are so nervous that something is going to come out of their mouth that may screw the entire thing up. Now, I don't remember her saying anything all that inappropriate. I'm trying to think right now. What was it that she kind of got into some areas that were maybe arguably controversial. It's not coming to mind. Nothing so red flag that it comes to mind immediately. Then another juror appeared on a YouTube channel you may have heard of called Surviving the Survivor, hosted by Joel Waldman, who's a phenomenal host and also a good friend of mine. And he was able to convince juror number 5 to come on and talk to him about it. And this was an episode that he had, and he had a lengthy interview with him. And juror number 5 talked a little bit about how he was paying attention to some extent to Donna's reaction in court. And the defense has tried to make waves with both of these, saying that they're talking about inappropriate things. They've been considering things they're specifically told not to consider. Jurors are instructed, don't consider the demeanor of the defendant in court. Good luck with that. But he wasn't really, in my view, this juror commenting on her demeanor in court as much as he was commenting on her reaction to the verdict. And we all saw that Donna reacted very vocally and outwardly and crying and, fits and everything else in court. The other thing they pointed towards are the quote unquote jailhouse snitches, in particular, Patricia Bird. They're saying that she had discrepancies in her testimony, that she was untrustworthy, that she lacked veracity. I'm not surprised by this one. I said this before, I thought that her testimony in particular was probably the most direct link between Donna and this crime of anybody who testified. She said Donna admitted to it. I mean, that is the strongest piece of evidence, arguably, in the entire case. Everything else was circumstantial and incredibly powerful, but she's saying Donna told me she did it. So, of course, they're going to go after her and say that she was untrustworthy and that the jurors relied too heavily on her. They went after Donna's day planner. Adult tantrum, says Jay. Good to see you, my friend. Because she had in her planner the make, model, and tag numbers for Dan Markel's car. What is that doing in there? Great question. It was a piece of evidence that was presented by the prosecution, and I think fairly convincing evidence. And I feel like someone pointed to that, maybe one of these jurors, as being fairly convincing evidence to them. Well, the defense is saying, quote, there is no evidence that the tag number was ever given to Charlie, let alone Megbanwa, Garcia, or Rivera. Even if such evidence existed, there's no evidence this was done or even before July 18th, 2014. I'll tell you right now, that's a very good argument. ... for trial. And they made that argument at trial. This is not an appellate issue. This is we're trying to relitigate the case issue. It was somehow inadmissible. It goes to we talk about this a lot in the law. It goes to the weight, not to its admissibility. Its admissibility is clear. This planner, there is relevance to it, and there is foundational it passes for foundational muster to be allowed at trial. It's just, what weight do the jurors want to give to it? If they agree with the defense, they won't give it much weight. If they don't agree with the defense, they might give it a lot of weight. That's up to the jurors, and that's not an appellate issue. And then finally, they went after everyone's most lovable favorite judge and teddy bear, Judge Stephen Everett. How dare you attack this man? This man, we deserve to erect statues to him, not attack him. Well, the defense says the court admonished the defendant on numerous occasions that she was not permitted to show any emotion in the presence of the jury. The law does not require that a defendant appear without any emotion. In fact, as in this case, appearing to be cold to the seriousness and evidence in the case may cause the jury to believe the defendant had no care or concern for what the victim endured. Again, okay, it's a good gripe. You're not going to get anywhere with it. And I'll tell you right here, right now, in their own papers, in their own argument, it says, in fact, as in this case, appearing to be cold to the seriousness and evidence in the case may cause the jury to believe. It's not how appeals work. They don't go off of speculation and what ifs and could have beens. again, none of these arguments are all that convincing to me. Shy Gal says, thank you so much. Love this. Thank you so much. Can we go back one comment, Tiffany, if you don't mind? I thought somebody had a question that I thought I may have missed there. Anyhow, great question, Josh. The tag number was a big piece of evidence for a jury. Yes, I think and it should be. It's again, it's circumstantial evidence. We don't know when it was put in there, but we know it was put in there, and that's interesting and certainly suspicious. But I doubt that they hinged the entire case on that. And that's why it's probably not an appealable issue. It's an issue that should have been brought up at trial, and it was brought up at trial. So thank you, Nicole, from Auckland, New Zealand, for kicking us off. Jules is Team Everett for life. I'm going to have t-shirts made because I'm Team Everett for life too. Arizona Gal, you're always so generous, says, to my CC fam, I love you. You might be thinking you don't even know me, but if people can hate for no reason, then I can choose to love. Happy Sunday, fun day. Oh, what a very kind message to kick us off with, and something we should all keep in mind. Thank you for that. Jody Arrington, thank you for the gift of memberships. Appreciate that. Gerda K has been a member for 1 month. Found you through Gizla. Thank you so much. Tell Gizla we appreciate you appreciate her sending you our way. All right, let's keep it rolling here. What did I do? I missed one. Here we go.
Hi, Josh and gang. I love your show. My name is Wendi also, but not of a criminal type. And I'm just very curious, if Wendi Adelson actually got indicted and convicted, would she be housed in the same jail as her mom, Donna Adelson, is? Just very curious about that. Anyway, thanks so much. Have a great Sunday. Bye-bye.
Wendi, not of the criminal crime family Adelson, Wendi. Wendi, I loved your question and I appreciate it, but you didn't tell us where you're from, so I have nowhere to put you on the map. So we're just going to say that we hope that you exist somewhere here on planet Earth. But great question. If Wendi is convicted, where will she be housed? The answer to that is there's no real law on it. There's no rule on it. It really is up to the Department of Corrections. Now, I will say, in my experience, when you have multiple defendants and they have all been co-conspirators together, they usually house these people in different prisons because they don't want them continuing to associate with each other and perhaps plan other crimes. You certainly see that in gang type cases. I've prosecuted many gang cases, and you might have multiple defendants and they're all going off to different prisons. In fact, when they even hold them in jail pending trial, they hold them separately. They don't want them associating further with each other. And I imagine the same rules would apply to the Adelson gang, the Adelson criminal street gang. They don't want them associating with each other and continuing to plan other murders, perhaps. That all being said, I don't know how many women's prisons exist in the state of Florida. That might be an issue. And it also might not be an issue as far as their risk assessment goes in prison for them to be housed together. The last case I can think of where people who were co-defendants were housed together is the Menendez brothers. For many, many years, they were housed separate from each other. And then it wasn't too long ago, I think within the last 10 years, that they actually housed them together in the same prison. And it was the first time they had seen each other since the trial. When they were both convicted, they got into separate vans, went to separate prisons, and didn't see each other again for something like 20 years. And then they got housed together, and there they are. One of them had more trouble with their hair, obviously, in all that time since being in prison. And now they might be released together. So who knows? We'll continue to watch that one. They're coming up again in 3 years. But to answer your question most directly, Wendi, it's not like I could point you to a rule. It's more up to the Department of Corrections in Florida as to where they have availability, what level of security they want to hold them under. But I would imagine they probably would not be housed together. Maybe even in the same prison, they might be just kept on separate yards. I don't know. But great question. Wendi from Planet Earth, appreciate you calling in. All right. Let's keep it rolling here. I don't know why I keep on messing this up.
Hi, Joshua. This is Lisa Marie from Clovis, California. I have a question regarding the Chad Daybell conviction for death penalty. I know he's been posting some letters on some public media sites, and I have a question regarding sentencing with convicts. Is there any legal ramifications for those that publicly post whatever they want to say via a sibling or a daughter or anything like that? Because it just seems like he can reach the audience he was trying to convince through his cult, and any future letters he might publish. This would also be a question for anybody who has a conviction that can post publicly after their convictions. Can you clarify this, if there's any legal ramifications, and if there's any way these people can be stopped publicizing these documents? Thank you so much. Have a great day.
From Clovis, California. Let's put you on the map. There's Clovis, right in the what are they? The bread belt of California, right in the valley of California. Excellent question, and a question that we've had more than once this week, and in fact, I think someone asked about it last week too. A lot of people are bothered by the fact that this convicted killer sitting on death row has access to somehow continue to get his garbage out there in front of him. And what he is doing is he's apparently writing letters to his daughter, who she is then publishing them on the internet. There's a website. You can check it out if you want. I'm certainly not trying to advertise it, and we're not going to like include a link for it, but it's lettersfromchad.com. Somebody should have snatched up that website address beforehand if they really wanted to shut this down. But here's the end of all of this is when you go to prison, obviously you lose some of your rights. The first and foremost being your right to freedom. But you don't lose all your rights. And one of them that stays intact is your First Amendment right. He's got a First Amendment right. So as long as he is not violating some sort of speech law by inciting a riot, by calling for violence. And there's also rules, by the way, about his conduct in prison. So he cannot certainly orchestrate criminal activity from prison. He can't call upon his followers to break down the walls of the prison, things like that. But he's got a First Amendment right. And if he chooses to proselytize his message, he's allowed to do that. And you may be thinking, well, listen, no one wants his filth. We don't want to hear it. Well, two things I'll say on that. If you don't want to hear it, the best way I think to handle this is to ignore it into oblivion. If no one's going to that website, they're going to give up. If nobody's paying attention to this, they're going to lose interest. And I imagine this will become one of those things where eventually people will lose interest. But think about it from the perspective of what we are as a country. We are not North Korea. We do not throw people into prison and then erase them from history. We do not put someone into a hole of complete erasing them from memory. I forget the term I'm trying to think of, but think about other situations where people are perhaps more in tune with being political prisoners, or people who've done crimes, but they also have a message that other people might support. The idea of shutting down someone's voice, even behind bars, is somehow, I think, runs against everything we really stand for. So we don't like his speech. We don't want to hear his speech, but that doesn't mean that we are going to eliminate his ability to speak. And I actually think that's a good thing. I mean, you know, there's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of weeks about free speech. What does it really mean? Free speech, in my view, means people are not going to be prevented by the government from saying things, even those things that are unpopular. And then it's up to all of us how we want to respond to it. If we want to ignore it, if we want to punish it by our dollars and not supporting it, that's the way I think to best handle it. But for the government to get involved and shut it down becomes a very scary and slippery slope in my view. But Lisa Marie, thank you so much. Colin from Clovis, California, for asking an excellent question that I know is on a lot of people's minds. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Josh and Courtroom Confidential crew. This is Erica from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I wanted to get your thoughts, Josh, on the appeal that has officially been filed in the Carly Gregg case. If you're not familiar with her case, she was 14 at the time. And she does live in Mississippi, or is from Mississippi. And she shot and killed her mother and attempted to kill her stepfather. And her stepfather has stood beside her the entire time and said that she was experiencing a mental health break. And her father has come out since the trial and said no one involved him at all, and that he was very much ashamed of Carly's behaviors. And so I know appeals typically don't tend to be successful, but I was curious because I hear more people erring on the side that this one would be successful. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it. I have mixed feelings in regards to an appeal because if you watch the videos that were played at the trial, I think that speaks volumes, lots of volumes. But she is also a kid, so I'm kind of torn. Anywho, thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye.
Erica from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Let's put Hattiesburg on the map there. There we go. Yes, I am familiar with this case. Really disturbing case. I'm sure a lot of you followed this case. If you haven't, even her haircut gives me the chills. If you haven't followed this case, do yourself a favor and look into it. But what we are talking about, thank you to Erica, Carly Gregg, who you're looking at here, was 14 years old at the time. This is back in March of 2024 in Mississippi. And she went about murdering and attempting to murder, first of all, murdering her own mother, whose name was Ashley Smiley, and then attempting to murder her own stepfather, whose name was Heath Smiley. In that screen capture that we just showed you here, this is video that was inside of the home that they just had like their own home camera. I don't think there was any reason it was set up. A lot of people just have, you know, like kind of ring type devices in their home just to see what's happening with the dog, who's in the house, things like that. And it captures her systematically and diabolically going about murdering her mother. And she knows that the camera's there and she's trying to hide the gun that she had in her hands. And you see her calmly waiting for her mother to go to the other room. And according to prosecutors, she goes up behind her mother and puts a bullet into the back of her head and then waits for her stepfather to come home and attempts to murder him. And he's able to escape and get away. She gets apprehended, obviously. She goes to trial. She's tried as an adult. She's 15, I think, by the time she gets convicted. And she's convicted in September of 2024. Remember, I told you the murder took place in March. So between March to September, now she's convicted. This will become important later. And she's sentenced to life without parole. Okay. Really disturbing, awful case about a young woman whose brain is not even fully formed, committing an atrocious, awful crime, and it really for no good reason. Nina Chandraw says she watched it on Core TV. The stepfather creeped me out, especially when he was talking about Carly when testifying. There was some goofiness there. We're not going to get into all the details, but again, if you have the time to look into it, it's well worth kind of refreshing your memory on the whole thing. So recently, the defense has filed a motion for a new trial. And one of the reasons they're basing this upon is this kind of rush to trial. Here's some quotes. They were under an exceptionally compressed schedule and under a series of statutory and constitutional errors that tainted both sentencing and the overall fairness of the proceedings. Carly was indicted barely 2 months after the incident and brought to trial within 6 months, effectively a rocket docket, like that phrase. In a case of this magnitude, requiring collection and review of extensive medical and mental health records, multiple evaluations, substantial family background history, and disputed motive, such acceleration is extraordinary in Mississippi criminal practice. I agree. I think that is rocket docket. I think that was breakneck speed for a first-degree murder trial where you're putting away a 14-year-old for the rest of her life. You go from March to September. If her defense was making objections along the way to the speed of this whole thing, the one thing, and this is the judge who presided over that and gave those rulings, Judge Dewey Arthur. The one thing, not a very common name, Dewey. You don't see that all that much anymore. The one thing that the defense has some control over is the clock. The prosecution, there's constitutional requirements for speedy trial. So if the defense wants to say, I want my trial as fast as humanly possible, in different jurisdictions, that means different things. But here in California, where I practice, if you're like, I want my trial, it's happening within 60 days. And if it doesn't happen, your case gets dismissed. That's how seriously they take it. Every jurisdiction's a little bit different. Mississippi, I'm not quite sure of the rules, but usually, if the defense is saying, I want my trial, they get it. But if they're saying, I need more time, they usually get that too. Now, it's up to the judge's discretion, but I can't imagine why the judge wouldn't give them more time in a case of this seriousness, magnitude, the delicate nature of the defendant herself. I don't mean delicate in the sense that she's not a murderer. I mean, it's a child. And if they're talking about mental health records and evaluations and family history and all of this other stuff that they needed time to compile, that does take time to do. Shocking quick speed. That might become an issue. I don't know. I mean, I cannot see the appellate court just kind of rolling over this one and being like, yeah, but you did have time and you were prepared, and we don't see that anything that happened at trial really put you at a disadvantage. They could. I mean, winning appeals is very difficult. But I'm also a little shocked at how quick this whole thing went. And then as far as they're saying that her sentencing was unconstitutional, and they're saying that a 14-year-old should not be sentenced to life without parole. Now, I think this argument actually has teeth as well. And again, these are not things where it was the prosecution handled the case poorly or the defense or the judge ruled against them. These are other issues about how quickly it went and issues about sentencing. So it would be unfortunate, in my view, if she does get a new trial or this does get overturned for these issues, which are things that you feel like could have been avoided. But why do I say she's got there's some teeth to this argument? Historically, the Supreme Court has been etching away at the idea of how we sentence juveniles, those below the age of 18, for some time. I'll give you just the briefest of histories on this. This is all according to the Eighth Amendment and what we consider to be cruel and unusual punishment. Roper versus Simmons, 2005, the court banned the death penalty for juveniles, citing their immaturity, heightened vulnerability to outside influences, and greater potential for reform. Juveniles cannot be sentenced to the death penalty, per the Supreme Court in Roper versus Simmons, 2005. 5 years later, Graham versus Ohio, 2010. The ruling prohibited the use of life without parole for juveniles convicted of non-homicide offenses. So already now the Supreme Court is saying yeah, we even think life without parole for a juvenile is cruel and unusual, according to the 8th Amendment, but they limited it to non-homicide offenses. Well, this is obviously a homicide offense. 2 years later, Miller versus Alabama, the Supreme Court declared mandatory life without parole sentences for juveniles unconstitutional, even in homicide cases. Mandatory life without parole. A judge must now have the discretion to consider a juvenile's age and other mitigating factors. So, what Mississippi did here is not illegal, according to the Supreme Court. They are allowed to sentence someone who is a juvenile for a homicide offense to life without parole, but it can't be mandatory, and the judge can consider other factors. All of that being said, you could say, well, what they did was not unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court hasn't ruled it against them. But I could easily see a case like this going to the Supreme Court and them etching away at that further and saying, you know what? When somebody is below the age of 16, life without parole is inappropriate, according to cruel and unusual, according to the 8th Amendment. I don't know. I'm just saying these arguments are not out of hand dismissible in my view. So thank you, Erica from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, for bringing up this case that we haven't talked about in a while, but it presented a lot of issues as far as what is happening to our children when the trial was going on, but now it's presenting a lot of issues as far as what is the landscape of the law as we want it to be nowadays. All right. Do I have some folks to thank? Thank you, Kasusek, for becoming a member. Thank you for becoming a member, and I wish I knew how to pronounce your moniker there. Thank you, Best Nancy. I know how to say that, for gifting a membership. Always appreciated and good to see you. K9 Catherine has been a member for 13 months and says, Happy International Day of Peace. Eclipse Day? Are we having an eclipse today too? Is that what that means? I don't know. I'll see you tonight. OnlyFan, member for 2 months. I voted for Judge Josh. Don't do that. We don't want Josh to be a judge. Josh has got too many... There's not enough to stop from here to here for me to be a judge, but I appreciate the kind words. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Not my fault, Kaylin.
Hi, Josh. This is Karina from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm sure you get this question a lot. It's regarding the Donna Adelson trial. She's just been convicted on September the 4th, I think. But anyway, as a defense attorney, if you were to represent her in court, what kind of defense would you go for? Anyway, thank you. Bye.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Karina. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I think that's the first. Is this our first time in Malaysia? Is that another dot down there? Oh, that's Singapore. Wow. Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Thank you so much, Karina, for putting Malaysia on the map. Appreciate that. And a great question, says Annie K. And I agree. Donna Adelson, what would I have done different to defend her? I think a strategy that would have been a little bit high risk, but I feel high reward, that I think would have worked better than what they did here, would have been to go for broke on accessory after the fact. That, in my view, was their strongest argument. I think the idea of coming into court and saying, ladies and gentlemen, Donna Adelson found out to the nightmare of all nightmares that her own son, who she loved and raised, Charlie Adelson, had committed a horrific murder because he loved his sister, Wendi Adelson, so much. And upon learning of this, she didn't do the right thing. Upon learning of this, she kept that to herself. and she tried to help him and tried to cover it up. And that is horrific, and that is awful, and that she should be found guilty and punished for. But ladies and gentlemen, she did not know of his horrible plans before the murder, and she certainly didn't conspire with him to commit this murder. I feel like there are some jurors who might have bought that. And I feel like even if she took the stand and said that and got the waterworks going and the knitting needles out and the granny glasses on and said, I had no idea what Charlie, poor little Charlie, who I tried to raise to be a good boy, was up to. And then when I found out, I was so shocked and horrified and realized that not only had my daughter lost the father of her children, but now my own son had been a part of taking that man's life, and I couldn't deal with it, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I did a bad thing, and that bad thing was not going to the police immediately, but that bad thing certainly wasn't helping him to do that. I don't know. Now, what does that do? That puts her in prison, but you know what it doesn't do? Put her in prison for the rest of her life. And I think some jurors may have bought that. And I think that the prosecution may have had a very difficult time with that. Not saying that they would have had not still secured a conviction for conspiracy. Maybe could. I mean, there's plenty of evidence of that. But I think you may have found a juror or two who could have been persuaded by that. I don't know. That is something that I feel like had they to do it over again, they might have gone for. But I'll tell you this, there's the boss. They got to take marching orders from her. If they ran that idea by her defense attorneys, and she says, no way, are you insane? I didn't do this thing. Get up there and fight for me. Well, then that's what they got to do. They cannot go up there and implicate their own client if their client is saying, I didn't do anything and I didn't know anything. So that may have been the trouble, is the lady sitting right there may have not allowed them. Many times when we look at these defense attorneys and we go, where are these arguments coming from? They're awful. They're coming from the person in handcuffs sitting next to them. That's the one paying the bills and calling the shots in a lot of this stuff. So Karina, please say hello to all your friends in Kuala Lumpur. Let them know to tune in, and let them know we ship to Kuala Lumpur, right? If you want a t-shirt, I think we can ship one out there. I think they deliver stuff out there. Thank you so much. Appreciate the support. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Josh. Granny Detective from Calgary. I have a case that I just came across, the Ellen Greenberg case out of Philadelphia. And this case has me so baffled. She was found dead in her apartment by her fiance with 20 stab wounds, 12 to the front, 10 to the front and 10 to the back in her neck area. It was first ruled a homicide, and then at some point it got changed to a suicide inexplicably. Then her parents have been fighting for the last X amount of years. They've actually sued the city of Philadelphia trying to get just her manner of death changed off of suicide. And they failed to do it in an expedited time. The judge has gone crazy over this, saying, why can't I just change it back to what it was originally ruled as a homicide? Can you put any kind of light onto this about how this happens, who's responsible, where the fault lies? Is it with prosecutors? Is it with the police department? Is it with the medical department? Anyway, I would sure like to know what the heck is going on with this case, because Ellen deserves justice, as do her parents. I hope you can address this case at some point.
Granny Detective, always good to hear from you. Calgary, Alberta, Canada. There you are. Granny Detective, welcome to the jungle. This case is wild. And if you are just now learning about it, buckle up, because it gets crazy, and the twists and turns will absolutely keep you up at night. And it is, I pride myself in having seen a lot over the course of my career, and not a lot of things fazing me. And every once in a while, something will happen, and I'll say to myself, I've never seen that before. Well, I've never seen before a case like this for many different reasons. And you're absolutely right. You should be appalled. You should be shocked. You should be offended and frustrated. And a lot of people are. And a lot of people are fighting for the right thing to be done here. And you're asking, how did it get here? Why is it the way it is? What happened? I am certainly no expert on this case. I have not been following it as long as many people have. I am trying to catch myself up. We will continue to follow it as updates happen. But the good thing about me is I have a phone book, and I happen to know people who do know a lot about this case. And so I was able to phone a friend.
Hi, Granny Detection. Gavin Fish here. Thank you so much for your question, and thank you for caring about Ellen. I think this case really boils down to terrible, shoddy police work done under the pressure of a nor'easter that was barreling down on Philadelphia. And once their investigation came to the conclusion that they thought that Ellen had done this to herself because they didn't really look at much beyond the wounds that were sustained to the front of her chest and abdomen, they were convinced. And it wasn't until the next day when Dr. Osborne saw everything back here that he properly called it a homicide. When the police found out that Dr. Osborne did that, they went on a very public, through the media, pressure campaign. They did so in private and in public to pressure Dr. Osborne to change the manner of death from homicide to suicide. And in my opinion, they did that only to cover up just what a terrible job they did. Now, other people benefited from that cover up, from that design, that what Josh and Sandy call a conspiracy. But I think that is the simple answer to your question. I think it's the correct answer to your question. The Philly PD just did a very bad job, and then other people came along behind them to cover it up.
That is Gavin Fish, everybody. If you don't know Gavin, go follow him right now. His channel is called Gavin Fish. And if you do follow him, and the next time you watch one of his videos, please send some love from Courtroom Confidential. Tell him we sent you. Send him a juice box or two. He's a fantastic guy. He's an investigative reporter, and he has been on this case for longer than anybody I know. He is very in the weeds on this case. He knows the family, the mother and father, so extremely well that I think he told me last time we spoke to him that he speaks to the mom weekly. This is his case. You want to know about the Ellen Greenberg case? I am certainly not going to try to tell you. You can get all the information from Courtroom Confidential. Gavin Fish has got this one covered, and we've had him on before just to talk about this case. And we'll have him on again as updates come up. But go over there, give him some love. Thank you. Tell him thank you for sending the answer to us. And that answer is, I cannot decide which is worse, quite frankly. I know a lot of people feel that this was a conspiracy and a cover-up, and it's about power and connections, and the main kind of suspect to everyone was Ellen's fiance at the time, and that his family is very connected, and that they got to the governor and everybody else. Let's say that might be true. Hold that one thought in your head. Okay. Think about how awful that could be. Then you've got Gavin, who, by the way, is not dismissive of all of that, but he's trying to give an assessment here too. And he's saying, you're in the middle of a snowstorm. You've got lazy cops. They come out. They're told a story by the boyfriend that the door was locked from the inside. They find her. She's a bloody mess. She does have stab wounds on the front of her. And they're told suicide, and they go with that. And then the medical examiner says, hey guys, you missed a whole bunch of stuff on the back of her head. This is Marlon Osborne. That to me, I mean, here you go. Who does that? Committing suicide that way. And he decides to change it to homicide. And then from pressure, they change it back. Now, is that conspiracy, or is that incredibly lazy and entrenched police who don't want to be embarrassed. I don't know which is more offensive. I don't know which troubles me more. Cops who are doing the wrong thing because of political pressure, or cops that are doing the wrong thing because of embarrassment and laziness. Both of them are horrific. In any case, the way things stand right now, there's currently pending litigation to have this case entirely reevaluated. And the parents, quite honestly, at the end of the day, they just want it said from a public official that their daughter did not take her own life. And even if that ends up being an undetermined death, I quite frankly don't think I'd feel satisfied with that. I think that a homicide investigation does need to be open and ongoing. And I think they need to bring in perhaps outside investigators to look into this whole thing. So great question, Granny Detective. Thank you. Thank you so much, Gavin Fish. Please, everybody, like I said, send him some love. We've got his channel linked in the chat, and we'll make sure that you guys all have it. He's absolutely worth following. All right. Let's keep it. Happy Sunday Fun Day, says Ali 90211. Thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate that. Hold on. Jules, thank you so much for becoming a member. All right. Just want to make sure I'm doing it all right here. I want to get yelled at.
Hi, Josh and CC crew. This is Momo calling again from Portland, Oregon, and I have what is probably feeling like a Sisyphean curse to you with a question about Wendi Adelson and her immunity. So I don't really have a law background, but I have like a casual / unhealthy obsession with watching court, and I like to dig around online. So I found New Jersey v. Portash, and this seems to be like a Supreme Court case where someone came to them because this person had been immunized in a grand jury proceeding, and then they went to trial for their own thing, and the judge had ruled that if they did testify, that their immunized testimony from the grand jury could be used as impeachment. And so the defendant chose not to testify, and then they were, found guilty, appealed, blah blah. Then this case, Portash, found that it was an erroneous ruling by the judge, and they reversed the conviction and gave him a new trial. So I guess I wonder, like, does this come up for Wendi at all? Like, would that mean, in the event all of these dominoes down the line that she's, indicted, goes to trial, and testifies, whether it could be impeachment material or not? And just to squeak in another question, I know an exemption for her immunity is perjury. So if she had to go to trial for perjury, would they have to separate that from murder stuff, because they would need to keep her testimony separate because it's immune or whatever?
Momo, I hope you're in the chat. I really do. Momo from Portland, Oregon. Let's put you on the map. I've said this before. We have the smartest community on YouTube. I am blown away by this question. This is so good. That you said that you don't have a background in the law. Well, you should. Because this is fantastic. And I love that you found a case and that you looked into it and you researched it. So what is going on here? And no, I Sisyphean curse of Wendi's immunity. Oh, you are here. Fantastic. Great question. I'm blown away by how good this is. So Wendi Adelson testifies, and just so that everybody's caught up on this, Wendi was given immunity. Wendi didn't ask for immunity. Immunity was foisted upon her. Okay. Wendi didn't want to testify. Wendi's got a Fifth Amendment right not to testify. And certainly in a case where there's an ongoing investigation, she knows everybody's looking at her, and any judge in the land would have allowed her to take the fifth. Well, the government says, hold on a second. We still want you to testify. So we're going to grant you use immunity. We're going to force you. I'm going to use that word force right now for a second. And remember that we're going to force you to testify. We're going to essentially nullify your Fifth Amendment protections to make you testify. Okay. She didn't want anywhere near that stand, and she's done it more than once now. So they get her to testify. Now, what does that mean if she is arrested, indicted, brought to trial, and she wants to testify herself? What can they use out of that testimony? Well, we know they can't use the words out of her mouth against her. They can't use anything derived from the words out of her mouth against her. They can use everything else that they know, but she's got use immunity for whatever she said on the stand under that grant of immunity. But the question becomes, what if she lies then or changes her story on the stand while she testifies as a defendant? What if she said the sky is blue in prior testimony, and now she gets up and she says the sky is green and it's always been green? Can they go back and say, well, didn't you testify under oath at a prior hearing to X, Y, and Z, like they would impeach anyone? And Momo says, well, what about New Jersey versus Portash? New Jersey versus Portash is a case from 1979, by the way, and you outlined it perfectly. That is exactly what happened. A government official was compelled to testify. They testified under immunity. They then went to trial themselves for separate criminal issues. The prosecution says we want to use their prior testimony for impeachment only. And the judge said, yeah, I'm going to let you to do that. And the Portash in that case did not testify because of that ruling. And the Supreme Court came back and said that was wrong. The judge should not have allowed that person to testify. Now, just so we're all aware, Portash then had to go to trial and still had to testify. It's just the prosecution couldn't use that impeachment purposes of their testimony. So what does that mean for Wendi? Well, let's take a look at a more recent case called Hemphill versus New York from 2022. This is a quote. Thus, in New Jersey versus Portash, the court rejected a state's effort to impeach a defendant through the introduction of his own coerced testimony. It did so despite the strong and obvious interest in preventing perjury, because the very introduction of the coerced testimony would violate the Fifth Amendment's provision that no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. So you've got two incredibly strong interests here. You've got a person's Fifth Amendment rights up against the obvious interests of preventing perjury. And the Supreme Court in 1979 and again in 2022 says that the Fifth Amendment wins because it's coerced testimony. I said forced earlier, but that is really the legal term of what's happening. It is a person who is coerced into testifying. They don't want to. We're forcing them to under a grant of immunity, and therefore you can't then pull the rug out underneath them and allow them to have that come back and be hoisted upon their own petard later on by their previous testimony. How does that affect Wendi? And you might be saying, well, gosh darn it, that means Wendi can get up and change her entire story. I guess, but how is that going to be helpful to her? And what is she going to change her story to? Her story is, I didn't know nothing about any of this, and I never knew nothing about any of it. And the first time I ever heard of it was when the police told me about it. What is she going to change it to at her own trial if she is arrested? Probably the same exact thing. Now, could she get up and change things and the prosecution would be helpless to do anything about it because of her prior testimony? Yes. Would that be perjury? Perhaps. Could they do anything about it during that exact trial? No. Could they bring perjury charges against her later on? Sure. Are we in a really bad spot where they're bringing perjury charges against Wendi Adelson because they lost the murder trial against her? We sure are. Interesting scenario. Fantastic case that you point out, Momo. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, everybody, for always making me feel like I'm the dummy in the room. So I appreciate it. That's such a good point, says Slow Momo. Thank you again. Portland, Oregon, putting you on the map. Appreciate the question. Jay says, just get her in front of a jury. They'll see her for what she is. I agree. I don't listen. Are you really going to doubt these prosecutors at this point that they can pull off nearly anything? I think they've got the goods on her. I think that the jurors will see that. And end of the day, she's the person who benefited more than anybody else. I mean, it's the arrows. You know, the crazy board with the yarn and the arrows, they're all pointing towards Wendi. Sorry, I missed that one. Jules, thank you so much for gifting the membership. Appreciate you, Jules, and your generosity. All right. I love that Jay's in the chat because Jay, I feel like Jay, the second you say the word Wendi Adelson, he like wakes up out of bed and then goes to his computer because he can just kind of sense it. It's like the bat signal to Jay. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Josh. This is Pam from Michigan. I was wondering if you had read or heard anything or even talked about the Amanda Knox story. I just finished reading her book and I'm listening to it again on Audible. And in her book, she talks about the interrogation and the interview process, which seemed to blur the lines. And I don't know if this was a translation thing or something that happens everywhere, which I'm sure it does, but how she got mixed up into this is an interview, not an interrogation. She didn't ask for a lawyer. A lawyer wasn't recommended. And then next thing you know, she's in jail and then spends the next, number of years in jail as well until she could finally get out. But she was innocent. So my question is, do you think this is why a lot of people are incorrectly accused? Does this happen a lot? Is the American system maybe a little bit better at catching this somewhere along the line? Just your thoughts on it. Really good story. And I just thought this probably relates to a lot of people in the justice system in America as well. So can't wait for Sunday. Excited to listen to everyone's questions. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much, Pam from Michigan. Let's put you back on the map. You ask a case that has been back in the news again. A lot of people are talking about Amanda Knox again. I'm fascinated with this case. I've watched, I think all of the documentaries. There's a recent dramatized series on Hulu that's excellent called The Twisted Tale of Amanda Knox. Check it out. It's a fascinating case on many different levels. If you don't know about it, go learn about it. But here's the cliffiest of cliff versions of the whole thing. Back in 2007, Amanda Knox is a international student in Perugia, Italy. Living her life, young kid, having a great time. Everything's great. One of her roommates is an English girl by the name of Meredith Kircher. Meredith Kircher ends up dead, stabbed to death in their own apartment. And Amanda is one of the people who discover her. Well, the Italian investigators immediately zero in on Amanda, and they do that for a number of really bizarre reasons. They don't appreciate the way that she reacted to the murder. They believe that she was somehow sexually promiscuous, and that had something to do with it. There were all these theories that Meredith got killed in some sort of orgy that was taking place. I mean, it just caught fire. The British tabloid media picked up on the whole thing. They ran with it. Foxy Knoxy became this kind of ongoing thing. And it was just a nightmare for this young woman. And the Italian system of justice is very, very different from the system of justice in the US or pretty much anywhere else. And she ends up getting convicted for this murder on really no evidence, but character evidence, essentially. And she's sentenced to 26 years. She's a young kid at the time in another country, sentenced to 26 years. She ends up staying in an Italian prison for 4 years before her conviction is finally overturned, thrown out. The evidence that was used against her is revealed to be shoddy at best. And in fact, DNA evidence links the murder to another man by the name of Rudy Gay, Rudy Gaudet, who had committed prior crimes, prior break-ins, prior assaults. He gets convicted for this murder and sentenced to 20 years. Now, here's the other part that will drive you nuts about the Italian system of justice. He commits a murder. Think about this. It's a murder where he broke into somebody's home, apparently may or may not have sexually assaulted her, and then murders her. He's sentenced to 20 years, already low. That's reduced to 16 for whatever reason. He's out right now. He served out the rest of his sentence as community service. He's out right now. He's a free man right now. And he's the convicted killer of Meredith Kircher. But as I say this, I know that there are people who still feel that Amanda Knox is responsible for this murder, which is wild to me. Why is that? And why did they go after her so heavily? Well, she was interrogated, to Pam's question, by the Italian police. She does not speak fluent Italian. Apparently, there was a lot of lost in translation, and they interrogated her for several hours, and they believe that she made admissions, which brings us kind of to the overall question that I think Pam was asking about false confessions and how bad of a problem is that. This may shock you. This is according to the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers. They came out with a study and some statistics, and their findings were that currently 28% of the nation's 367 wrongful convictions overturned with DNA. So where you've done, innocence projects or whatever else that have overturned a conviction based upon DNA, 28% of those involved a false confession or admission. What does that say? Does that say that there's a flaw in the criminal justice system? Does that say that there's a problem with people psychologically inherent about us that we might admit to things that we didn't do under extremely stressful circumstances? I don't know if I'm qualified to answer those questions, and I don't know if we can answer all those questions in the time that we have. But it is an issue. It is a thing. To say that false admissions and confessions don't take place is flat out wrong. They do. But it's one of the most difficult things in the world to try to explain to jurors and to prosecutors, because no one thinks, no matter how bad, they would ever be in a situation where they would ever admit to something that they didn't do, especially something as heinous as a murder. So how can we say that 28% of people wrongly convicted, and this is, by the way, the ones that have had it overturned by DNA. So I don't know what you do with those statistics if you're including other wrongful convictions that we just don't know about. Anyhow, like I said, we could talk about this forever and it could get us on a real tangent here, but it's a very interesting question. Especially now, your question also was, what can we do about it? Well, as we progress as a society in the slow glacial movement of the criminal justice system, things are being done to add protections against this. And you do see constitutional protections against kind of overly zealous interrogations and overly lengthy interrogations being used to try to coerce admissions out of people. So anyhow, Pam, thank you so much. Check out the Amanda Knox series, you guys. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Hey, Mr. Ritter, this is Christopher, a.k.a. Johnny Knoxville, phoning in on vacation this time from Waynesville, North Carolina, my favorite mountain town. Just wanted to talk about the Frazier Bohm case, which is the young man who killed a couple of fraternity girls on the Pacific Coast Highway, a road I've driven many times. I'm quite familiar with myself. And he, ironically, I guess, killed them in the Dead Man's Curve. My question is regarding kind of our legislation and our justice system. I saw Alan Jackson's motion or request to lower bail to $2 million was denied, and I was really happy to see that, because it was kind of the judge saying, okay, just because you're from money doesn't mean you're gonna get a different shake with the justice system. We're gonna try you and we're gonna treat you fairly. Is there legislation we could pass where something maybe like truth in sentencing where, if you're found guilty, you're going to get the same sentence as everybody else, regardless of your income status. I just think this is an area that people really get irritated by. I guess I'm eager to hear your thoughts. I don't think Jackson's going to get the same kind of results he got for Karen Reed. I think this is two different types of cases completely. And shout out to all the kind people in the chat. I hope you have a great Sunday. Thank you.
Johnny Knoxville, Christopher, one of my dudes in the house, calling from Waynesville, North Carolina. Let's put Waynesville on the map. Appreciate hearing from you, my friend. I don't know if you're around this morning, but hello to you if you are. All right. About this case, yes, this horrific case involving a young man here in Southern California. He is been charged with actually 4 murders. It was a horrible auto incident that took place on PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, and 4 young women tragically lost their lives. There will be every so often on this channel where there is a case where I just cannot comment about it because I have some sort of connection to it, maybe close, maybe loose. I don't want to get into the details of it. So unfortunately, I am not going to talk directly about this case. And I hope you guys understand and appreciate that. I know it's a case that a lot of people are following and we've been purposefully avoiding it, but I can't comment on bail. And I think that is really to the heart of Johnny's question is, bail and creating a better system and making sure that people with means are not treated differently somehow by our justice system than people without means. And that's a question that's gone on for a long time. And a lot of people are trying to do stuff about bail reform for that exact reason. Why in the world should somebody with a lot of money be able to get out and be treated differently than somebody who has no money? Here's the problem with the bail system, as I see it, in its most simplest form. And it's not a simple issue, but I'm going to try to make it simple. Bail is all about trying to do 2 things. It's trying to, 1, make sure that that person returns to court, and 2, protect the community from that person if that person's exhibited some sort of violence. So that's why bail goes up with the more serious and violent the crime, okay? Because we don't want a person who's even accused of something horrific having the chance to be out and do something horrific again. So you're accused of first-degree murder, your bail is going to be extremely high. You're accused of murder with special circumstances, making you eligible for the death penalty, you're probably not even going to get bail, okay? But you're accused of some sort of low-level misdemeanor, you're likely going to get released, or your bail is going to be very, very low. But what does that do for people who don't have money at all? Well, what other mechanism do we have is my question. Money to do this just became the simplest thing. It's, well, people like money. People want to keep money. So money is probably a good motivating factor to make sure somebody comes back to court and make sure that somebody behaves themselves. Because if they don't, then they're going to lose a lot of money. And that is really the dumbest, not dumbest, but it's the barest understanding of why we do bail based upon money. What are we going to substitute that for, though? Because if you say, well, get rid of money bail. Okay, well, then what do? Do you just lock everybody up? Do you say if you're convicted or you're charged with these types of crimes, you get no bail? So now you're going to have the entire jail filled up with people accused of all sorts of crimes. And then do you say, well, if you're accused of anything below this level of seriousness, you just get out? Well, that, that also takes discretion out of the hands of the judges and the DAs and the people on the ground dealing with these things. And that's really the issue, is you can't, I think, legislate your way out of this. You've got to create some sort of system that allows the boots on the ground people, the prosecutors and judges, to make decisions based on discretion and based on the individual. And you've got to do it in a way that ensures that they are motivated to come back. Now, we've got ankle monitoring nowadays. I think that's helpful and is being used a lot. But really, at the end of the day, I think until we come up with a better system than money being that motivation, we're probably going to be stuck with it. And that means, to your point, Chris, people with money are probably going to get out and people without money are probably not. And that's an unfortunate kind of side effect, but I don't think it's a ingrained, injustice that is trying to punish people without money. I think it's just we don't have a better system. But great question. One of my dudes, Johnny Knoxville from Waynesville, North Carolina. All right. How's this going, guys? You liking this? We're covering a lot of territory. New Jersey v. Portash. You didn't know you'd be getting a Supreme Court lesson. We talked about the history of the Eighth Amendment. Good grief. Law school. Who needs to go to law school? Just show up here every Sunday. You can get a poor man's law degree from Courtroom Confidential. All right. Now I lost my place. Where are we here? Here we go.
Hi Josh, this is Hayley from Cornwall. Been listening to a few things about JonBenet Ramsey from sort of CrimeCon and since CrimeCon. John Ramsey's been sort of talking about the DNA and he's really doesn't know what's going on with the case. I just wonder if they'll ever solve it by genetic genealogy. And yeah, like this case, I don't know why, but for some reason, it really haunts me, this case. If I'm listening to something about it late at night, I start hearing noises and it really freaks me out. I just kind of wondered, is there any cases that kind of really do, make you a bit spooked out? Ones that you think about and think, oh, I wish that could be solved. And do you think it will ever be solved?
Haley from Cornwall, England. Love this question. Thank you so much for calling in. There's Cornwall, putting you on the map. Yeah, the JonBenet Ramsey case is back on everyone's minds quite a bit. John Ramsey was at CrimeCon. He did speak. I was not able to see him, but I know that he's been doing a lot of interviews. And there's a big there's the shot from inside the one of the assembly halls. What are we calling those things? One of the rooms where they were having speakers, and these rooms were just filled with hundreds and hundreds of people. It was really, really a great event. And one of the things a lot of people are talking about is that they're trying to submit the DNA. If you remember this case, there was some genetic material recovered that they believe is tied to the killer of JonBenet Ramsey. And that has always been described as unknown male DNA. They've tested every possible suspect against it, including the Ramseys, and cleared everyone through this DNA. Whether or not that's the best way to approach this DNA is a question for another day. But now they're trying to use this IgG, this investigative genetic genealogy, to see if they can't somehow reverse engineer a family tree for this possible suspect and maybe make some movement on this case. And Haley says the case spooks her. It spooks the hell out of me. Cases involving beautiful little girls being a girl dad spook the hell out of me. The idea that someone broke into this family's home and horrifically murdered their daughter in their own home is the nightmare beyond nightmares for any mother, father, or anyone. And the fact that they still 30 something years later don't have a suspect, don't have someone answering for this is also adding to the mystery of it. And it's such a great question. You asked me, is there another case like this that spooks me? I want to know from you guys, first of all, because I had a hard time thinking of another one that kind of reaches that same level. So if you guys have got cases that are like kind of unsolved, horrible murders that you can think of, let us know in the comments, because this is a really fascinating. Kaylin and I were talking about it. Tiffany and I were talking about it. What was the one that you had, Kaylin? Why am I blinking on the name right now? She's going to put it in the comments. DB Cooper. That's right. You remember this one? Weird unsolved mystery. The one that came to my mind immediately was the Zodiac killer. You got this guy who murders several people. I think he's good for 5 murders, and then taunts the police with these codes and riddles, and they still can't find him. Is that Zodiac that we're looking at there? The what they believe was or is that DB Cooper? No, that's Zodiac. I love this. I love this. It says, can you make it larger for just 1 second, Kaylin? Thank you. It says, or on the left, it says original drawing, and on the right, it says amended drawing. I see no difference. Like, I do not know. What did they go back and go amend it? Maybe something, a scar on his neck? I don't know. Like, do you look at the one on the left and go, I have no idea who that is? And then you look at the right and go, oh, that's Frank. He lives 3 doors down from me. Anyhow, this is still an unsolved case. That one kind of gives me the creeps. But if you guys have got other ones, Madeleine McCann. Yeah, we talked. I think are we talking about that today? Now everything's confusing in my head, but I think we talked about that. Oh, we're talking about that in one of our True Crime Minutes coming up this week. So if you guys listen to the True Crime Minutes on our podcast, we talk about that one a little bit. Sabrina Eisenberg. I'm not familiar with that one. I should be writing these down. Zodiac. Grew up in San Francisco. So scary. And the crazy thing about the Zodiac is he could be dead by now. You know what I mean? Mariah. Sorry, Tiff, the last one I missed. Mariah Murray, that's another one that's not coming to mind right away. I should look that up as well. Madeleine McCann she was abducted, I believe a British girl vacationing in Portugal, abducted in the middle of the night, never recovered, never found. Horrible, horrible stuff. True Crime Minute is why you need to sub to the pod. Thank you, Afton. That is very true. It is one of the benefits that is on audio only. So if you guys don't listen to us on audio version, at least subscribe just for, we do a True Crime Minute every single day on interesting little cases that we do not cover here for the most part on the channel. Summer Wells. I hope we're writing these down. We'll write these down. All right. Maybe we'll do a whole thing on unsolved crimes. And also, I did an interview on Fox Nation on their Fox podcast on JonBenet. They did a 3-part series. If you guys want to check that out with Paul Morrow, we'll put a link to that up in the chat or somewhere for you guys to check that out. But we talked quite extensively about this case. I forgot about that. So please check that out. I've been a little bit in the weeds on this one. Cheryl R., thank you so much for gifting the membership. Appreciate you. All right. Did we do that enough? I think we did. Let's keep it rolling here. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
Good morning, Josh, CC crew, any confidential grizzlies in the chat. Happy Sunday Fun Day. This is Court Lurker calling from Spokane, Washington. I did try to leave a question yesterday and was having issues. So if they happen to go through, please ignore those. So I have 2 questions I'm going to try and spit out real quick. So my first question is, I don't know if it's a stupid question, but I'm going to go for it. So with Donna and Charlie both having appeals in, if Charlie were to, by any chance in a million years, get an appeal, would that affect Donna's in any way? Would there be like a domino effect, or does it depend on what the appeal was granted for? I'm just curious. And my second question is for defense lawyers. So I do know that some private defense lawyers do go and do cases that are public defenders. How does that work? Is there like a pool? Do their names get drawn? Do they put their name on a list? How does that work? How does a private defense attorney get chosen to do a public defender case? If that makes sense. Have a wonderful Sunday, fun day, and thank you for everything you guys do.
Court lurker, Spokane, Washington. Let's put Spokane on the map. Can you zoom out for a second? Yeah, I feel like we were kind of not getting all the much love from the Pacific Northwest, but I think it's filling in there quite nicely. Look at that map of all the dots that we have all over the place. We did a map, by the way, when we went to CrimeCon, we brought a map with us and people put dots on it, and it was incredible to see it fill up. How many people are from all over the place that showed up even to CrimeCon. Go back 1 second real quick, Kaylin, if you could. What is happening? What is that? Is that Colorado? What's happening there? Nobody? Is that Colorado? Wow. Colorado. Are we banned in Colorado? Is that what's happening? I don't know. Kaylin's saying something to me and I can't hear her. Cheryl R. Thank you so much for gifting a membership. Appreciate you. Isabella 164. Thank you so much for the super chat. All right. I lost my thought. I got so mad at the map that I lost my thought. Court lurker from Spokane, Washington, wants to know, could there be some sort of cross benefit from Donna's appeal to Charlie's appeal, or Charlie's appeal to Donna's appeal? Really interesting question. And the ultimate answer and the quickest answer is no. They're separate appeals. They're separate cases. They had separate juries. They had separate rulings on evidence. They were separate. They were individually positioned in their culpability. Everything should be determined independently of each other. But for a hypothetical, let's say a witness that testified at both trials, Catherine McBanois, for instance, let's say it were to come out that she had completely perjured herself on an issue, and that was provable, and the perjury affected the convictions in both cases. Well, then I could see a situation where if Charlie prevailed on that issue, that would probably have a great effect on Donna's case. Not that Donna's attorneys could walk into court and go, he won, so we should win. They still have to make the arguments and show why it affected her case. But if a court were to find that Catherine McBanois' testimony was perjurous during his trial, they could use that finding in their own arguments in their appeal. But short of something like that, it's not just that if he wins, that makes it a better chance that she wins. In fact, I could very easily see he being granted a new trial. I'll take that back. I can't easily see him being granted a new trial, but I could easily see there being an issue where he might be granted a new trial that would be entirely independent and non-existent in Donna's trial, because it was separate trials, separate juries, separate rulings, individual culpability on every single level. But great question, court lurker from Spokane, Washington. Appreciate you. Did I ever get to the bottom of what Kaylin was yelling at me? I just don't want to get yelled at when we're done with this, because I want to go watch some football and I don't want to cry while I'm doing it. Not yelling into the void. Oh, Wyoming. That was Wyoming, not Colorado. Good thing I'm a lawyer, not a topographer. Is that what a map maker is? I don't know. Let's keep it rolling here. Well, then I'm upset at Wyoming.
Hey, Josh. Good morning, everyone. This is Allie B from Tennessee. I'm in Nashville. I'm really nervous, but so I wanted to follow up on my question about, I believe I'm saying this right, but Yordanis Cobos-Martinez. Tell me how well I did. and that terrible case in Texas. Also, I just want to send my sincere gratitude for you stopping the other night when I sent the whatever thing and talked about Charlie, because I am just heartbroken. I still am. I think today was the first day I haven't cried in a week. So, um, anyway, I hope there's more people that can be like him. But love y'all and have a great Sunday. Thanks, Josh.
Allie B from Tennessee, thank you so much for calling in. Nashville, Tennessee. Let's put you on the map. Now I'm just thinking about Wyoming. If there's anybody near Wyoming, you need to go in there and tell those people to get on the internet. I don't know what's going on. Anyhow. And yes, I saw that it's a cartographer that does maps, not a topographer. What is topographer, dude? They're the ones that tell us how tall the mountains are. Is that what it is? They work. I imagine if you're a cartographer, you probably employ a topographer to help you out. Get back on track, Ritter. Allie B from Nashville, Tennessee. First of all, yes, thank you for bringing up Charlie Kirk. I know a lot of people are still struggling with that one, and his memorial service is actually today. It's supposed to be a record number of people showing up in Arizona for that. But to your question, this is a horrific case, and I'm going to give a bit of a graphic content warning here, just in case this is the type of stuff that makes you a little uneasy to hear about early in the morning on a Sunday. But he, Yordanis Cobos-Martinez, is accused of murdering a man by the name of Chandra Nagamalaya. Chandra was apparently some sort of food vendor. I'm thinking I've read reports that the reports are not all that clear as to what led to the conflict, because what I'm about to tell you seems to be the driving force of most reporting on this case. But Yordanis, this took place on September 10th in Dallas, Texas, takes out a machete in the course of this argument and beheads Chandra in front of his own wife and child, and then proceeds to, according to reports and prosecutors, kick the head around like a soccer ball. So about as nightmarish and horrific a thing as you can imagine, taking place in front of two people who will be scarred for life. This case got a lot of attention too, not just because of the horrific nature of it, but because Yordanis has several prior arrests and several prior deportations, and had somehow snuck back into the country again and then committed this horrific crime. So the status of it right now, which Ali is asking about, is he has been charged with obviously first-degree murder. He's facing capital murder. They do have the death penalty in Texas. They are probably going to pursue that against him. Like I said, it just happened September 10th, so not so long ago, not a whole bunch of updates on it. And we will continue to kind of follow and update you folks if you want to hear more about it. Welcome back if you're done avoiding the graphic content on all of that case. So, but thank you, Ali B from Nashville, Tennessee, for asking. All right. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hi, Josh. My name is Shirley, and I'm from Bradenton, Florida. And my question for you is, I was watching the the video that you and Chris McDonough did the other night. And I'm wondering, how did the shooter get down off that roof without the rifle? From other videos I've seen, he didn't have enough time to take it apart on the roof before he jumped down. And when he jumped down, it sure didn't look like he had it in his pants, that's for sure. And then he ran across the road and then dumped the rifle, and it was put together. I don't get it. Can you explain that one? Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, Shirley from Bradenton, Florida. Let's put Bradenton on the map, first of all. Excellent question. We're obviously talking about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The man who has now been arrested and accused of his murder is Tyler Robinson from Utah. A lot about this case. It's amazing to me, on one hand, how much we have learned about this case in a very short period of time. This murder took place less than 2 weeks ago. He's already been arrested. He's already been charged. They're already seeking the death penalty. And we've already learned a lot of information about what may have motivated him and how he planned this and how long he planned it and the steps that he took to cover it up. One thing we know for sure is he was intent on getting away with it. But eventually his parents see his photo on the news and they put pressure upon him, and he finally decides he's going to come forward and turns himself in. I think they would have eventually caught him, but he did turn himself in. Now, Shirley wants to know, how did he get off that roof with the rifle? Well, one, we don't know, but there is evidence to suggest that he may have planned on dismantling it because he had a screwdriver with him. The screwdriver was left at the scene, and the screwdriver is one of the pieces of evidence that they were able to recover DNA from, and the FBI was able to match that DNA profile to Tyler Robinson. So maybe he had plans of dismantling it and dropped those plans when he just tried to run from the scene. We also know that it looks like he pre-planned to drop the weapon in a wooded area behind the university. His car was parked over a mile away, go back to his car without any indication that he's got a rifle on him, right? And then circle back around and get the rifle. But by the time he tried to do that, there was a bunch of police activity in the area and he had to abandon the rifle. They did recover the rifle, which is how we know about the DNA, which is how we know about it being his grandfather's rifle, and which is how we know about the etched bullet casings. I'm going to show you a piece of video. First of all, let me give a shout out to Chris McDonough, who was able to walk through a lot of this information with us. We did an episode with him last Wednesday. If you haven't watched it, please check it out. Really interesting. We talked a lot about Tyler Durlin, a lot about Luigi Mangione. And Chris is just a fantastic guy and has these wonderful insights from all of his decades of experience in law enforcement. But, and I'm also going to be on his show tonight, by the way, later on this evening, 5 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to be on the interview room. I'm looking forward to that. And we're going to be talking about We All Love America. And I think we're going to be talking about the status of crime in our country and what's going on and what direction is it headed. So heady stuff, but check it out this evening. Please come by. Please say hi. Please send some Courtroom Confidential love his way. Let's show that video of this is after the shooting. You will see the suspect running across the roof line there. It zooms in. You'll be able to see it better. And then you see him jump off the roof. And what investigators believe you can see is him carrying some sort of object in his hand. I believe that you can. I mean, you obviously can see something in his hands. Whether or not that looks like a rifle, I think it could be the rifle wrapped in something. It could even be the rifle partially dismantled and wrapped in something. It could have been that he did use the screwdriver to partially dismantle it, throw it into some sort of bag, or it was later recovered inside of a towel. And, you know, we don't know what condition it was recovered in. It could have been recovered in a partially dismantled condition when police found it. But here, then what he does is he runs to the back of the campus. Watch this as the car approaches. See how his gait changes? He notices that vehicle and starts walking rather than running. It's incredible because all these people in the background that you see walking around, they have no idea that the shooting just took place. This is on the other side of campus. He shot at one side of the rooftop, ran to the opposite side, and people in this area right now have no idea that a shooting just took place. There's the photograph of him that was shown on the news that his parents were able to identify him from and convince him to come forward. So to your question, Shirley, I think he did have it with him. And then he did jump off the roof with it. And then he did ditch it in the wooded area behind the campus. And this, we know a lot of this because he says so in a text exchange with his roommate and romantic partner at the time. So a lot of this information that we have, it's coming from his own mouth, as it were, over text message. Great question, though, Shirley. Appreciate you asking. A case that will obviously be dominating the news for a long time to come, and we will be following it for you. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Not my fault. Not my fault.
Happy Sunday Funday, Joshua, Tiffany, Kaylin, mods, crew, chat, everyone. Wish K. Mayo, Humboldt, Tennessee. Joshua, let's talk about jury instructions. We have seen over the years, if a juror or jurors do not follow the judge's instructions for the jury before and after deliberations, the consequences of such actions may be removal of the juror from the trial, may be, in severe cases, have to throw the whole entire trial out, start over again. Can be juror admonitions. But I have read online that jurors can be jailed and or fined. I don't think I've ever seen a juror be jailed or fined. It's probably happened, and I'm just not aware of it. Has this ever happened in the United States of America? I look forward to your answer. Hope y'all have a great rest of the day. Happy Sunday Funday, y'all. Bye.
Alicia K. Mayo, Humboldt, Tennessee. Let's put you on the map there. Good to hear from you, as always. Great question. First of all, let me say, I have never experienced a juror being certainly not jailed. I can't even think of a time a juror has been fined. The most I've ever seen is judges reprimanding jurors. I have seen judges punish jurors in the sense of many times jurors will come and they get summons for a criminal case. Criminal cases usually are only a few days long and they're much easier to listen to. And I have seen judges where jurors will complain and make up stuff and say they can't sit on this case and all of that. And the judge will go, I love it when judges do this. You know what? It just seems like sitting on a criminal case is not right for you. And you can see the person getting all happy thinking they're dismissed from jury duty. And he goes, I'm going to send you across the street to our civil division and you can go ahead and sit on a jury there. And then they're sitting on a civil case talking about some sort of dog bite or slip and fall out of Ralph's for 2.5 weeks. So enjoy that. Sometimes you get exactly what you want. Again, Joshua, quit it with the tangents, get back on track. Has a juror ever been jailed in the United States? Yes, and more often than you think. Not that it's happening all that often, but I found several examples, and I'll tell you just about one. There was a case by the name of this woman here, Kayla DePena. She was sitting on just the sentencing part of a trial. So a man had been convicted. He was looking at the death penalty. They had to retry the penalty phase for whatever issue. She was sitting on that. His name was Besman Okafor. This was out of Florida. The trial took place in November of 2023. And she did some bad stuff. She talked to a friend about the case. Then when she found out that the jury would be sequestered for the night, she was unhappy about that, didn't want to do it, decided that going to work the next day was far more important to her. So walked out of the deliberation room, told her fellow jurors that she was going to get a mistrial declared, went in and barked at the judge about how she has been talking to all sorts of people and knows about the case and has been researching it, knowing that that would invite the judge to declare a mistrial. Well, she was right. It did invite the judge to declare a mistrial. But then what she didn't realize is that that also invited the judge to sentence her to 179 days in jail. So unfortunately, she still did miss work. Another interesting case. This one's actually out of the UK. A man by the name of Jason Carr had a prior law enforcement background, but had been dismissed from law enforcement. Told the judge that he had quit, but he actually got fired. And he decided that there was stuff missing in the trial, that things were not. He felt that they were not getting the full story. So he did research himself and then told the other jurors about the research that he had done. And those other jurors said, well, I'm going to let the judge know about this. And the judge didn't buy it and said, that's a bunch of nonsense and horse crap. And why did you do that? And you've ruined this whole thing. And I'm going to go ahead and sentence you to 6 months in jail. So Jason Carr, again, listen to the judge, ladies and gentlemen. What are you doing? Why are you trying to cause trouble for yourself? Listen to the judge. But great question. AKM from Humboldt, Tennessee. Appreciate it. Zarcasm, you're so kind and generous. Thank you. The last 2 weeks, I watched the Stotch trial. It really affected me mentally, and I shut down by the end. I just realized today how much I've needed all of you. So happy I came in today. Love you all. Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you, Sarcasm. We're glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're feeling a little more rejuvenated. We hope that we are bringing some smiles to your face today. Thank you so much for that super chat. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Josh, this is Gina from Chapala, currently stuck in Mexico. I've got not a question, but maybe a request or a suggestion. First of all, next year, maybe take one of those inflatable beach ball style globes to CrimeCon, and then you can have the whole world there and everybody can find a place to put their little stickers. And it would be easy to pack because you can just blow it up after you get there. The next one is, would you please consider maybe doing something on Creators Row? Maybe do a podcast, like one of your Mondays or a special one for members. And the next thing, maybe we could try and schedule a member meetup for one evening. I know everything's jam-packed, but I'd love to meet the other members of the Courtroom Confidential crew. Thanks for everything.
Gina from Chapala, Mexico. So good to hear from you. It was so good to meet you and say hello to you at CrimeCon. Thank you so much. Again, putting you on the map. To your request, Gina. Yes, yes, and yes. All three of them. We love the ideas, and we're actually working on all three of them. First, like I said, we did have a map that we laid out on our table where people could leave little dots, and it was fantastic to see where everyone was from, even at CrimeCon. I thought, it was in Colorado. I thought we were going to have a lot of people from that area. We did, but we had a lot of people from everywhere, to the point that when the map was done, I don't think you could decide where the convention took place if you didn't know, just by looking at the map. It was just so spread all over the place. But we had several people who said, hey, I'm not on here. I'm from England. I'm from Argentina. I'm from Chapala, Mexico. Where can I put my little dot on the map? So we thought, you know what, next time we do this, maybe we got to figure out a globe situation. So we're working on it. Oh, there you go. There's our map. See, can you tell where that convention took place just by looking at it? You might look at it and say, oh, it was in Florida, or, oh, it was in, up there by Massachusetts or something. No, it was in Denver. So it was really nice to see where everybody was from. But we got it. And you see those little dots that are on the side? They're like kind of in the ocean. Those were not people who lived in Atlantis. Those were people who lived across the pond and just didn't have a spot on the map. So they left them there. So we're going to have to figure that out. Live podcasts. Yeah, I think we're working on that too. We would like to do something like that. I know that they only have space for so many podcasts to do that, but we're going to try to figure it out. If we can do it, maybe we'll do something like this, a shortened Sunday Fun Day live from CrimeCon. Wouldn't that be fun? And then a members meetup for sure. Tiffany and Kaylin and I are already working on that. We're going to figure it out. So if you are going to be at CrimeCon in Vegas, May 29th through 31st, do I got that right already? You're going to have a blast. You're going to love it. It's going to be fantastic. We will be there, and we are definitely going to do some sort of meetup. Details to follow, I should say. There we are. And if you want a discount on buying tickets now, enter the word courtroom, all caps, all one word, at checkout, and you'll get 10% off. And we hope that you do. All right. Thank you, Gina. Let's keep it rolling here.
Hello, Josh. This is Mary from Ohio. I was watching a video in which Vinnie Politan was interviewing John Ramsey at CrimeCon. A lady from the audience asked John if he had ever asked Boulder police if they still have the DNA evidence in the case. John said no. If the evidence is lost or destroyed, does John Ramsey have any recourse in this matter? Thanks, Josh.
Mary from Ohio, thank you so much for calling in. Good to hear from you. And another JonBenet Ramsey case. I told you this case is getting a lot of attention recently. A lot of people are starting to revisit it. And John Ramsey, like I said, was at CrimeCon. He gave a presentation that a lot of people were interested in. And Mary says that he was asked the question of if he's ever asked Boulder PD if they still have the DNA. And he says, no, he hasn't. Now, and then Mary wants to know what recourse does he have for something like that if they lost or destroyed it. First of all, one, they very well could have it. We don't know if they lost or destroyed it. Two, if they've already tested it and created a profile from it, I imagine what they need is just the profile information and not the actual sample itself any longer. They can compare that profile to other suspect profiles. But three, as far as, let's say they did destroy it and let's say it is lost, what recourse does John have? Not much. He could try to sue and say, I've suffered damages in the extent that I'm, experiencing emotional distress because now I can never find the killer of my daughter because of your incompetence. I don't know how strong of a case that could be. But the reason why he doesn't have all that much recourse is because he's not a defendant. Here's where it gets interesting. Let's say they do arrest someone and charge them, and that defendant then wants to test the DNA independently. And they say, well, that sample has been lost or destroyed. Then we could have a potential issue because now what you're talking about here is what's called a young blood violation that you may have heard about us talk before. This is a case from 1988 where the Supreme Court said, we therefore hold that unless a criminal defendant can show bad faith on the part of the police, failure to preserve potentially useful evidence does not constitute a denial of due process of law. That's a pretty high standard. But if the Boulder police, through their own bad faith, destroyed this evidence and did not allow for it to be retested by a potential new defendant, there could be an issue here. And what we're talking about is the preservation of this assay kit that was taken at the time. Or pardon me, the young blood case. Oh, this is where I was going with this. The young blood case is fascinating in and of itself. This case, obviously, I said the Supreme Court had it in 1988, so it happened before then. But that person was charged with an essay of a child. the kit, the result, the examination that was done of the child was not refrigerated. And therefore it degraded the DNA. This is back in the 1980s, mind you. Youngblood was convicted of the crime. By 2000, the year 2000, they now have advancements in DNA technology, and they were able to do new testing on that degraded DNA and exonerated Youngblood and found another person by the name of Walter Cruz, who the DNA matched to in 2001, and Walter Cruz got convicted. So Mr. Youngblood did several years in prison for a crime that he did not commit, based upon the failure of law enforcement to properly preserve that DNA evidence. That's something that is going to give you fits. But the Supreme Court said, despite that, it was not a violation because there was no bad faith on the part of law enforcement. I don't know what caused the refrigeration, but it wasn't like they did it on purpose. So anyhow, interesting case. All right. Quit talking, Josh. Get going. People got things to do today. Yes, sir. All right, let's keep it rolling.
Good morning, Joshua. It's Raffaella here from Australia. I've called in a few times before. My concern is about Chad Daybell writing letters from death row that are being posted online. I know last week with one of your callers you said there's not much that can be done, but what worries me is this isn't just about upsetting victims' families or making us angry. Chad is a cult leader. If you recall, Brandon Boudreaux was afraid there were still unknown followers out there even after Chad and Laurie got arrested. And cult experts warn that leaders can continue influencing people even from prison. These letters might look like nonsense to most of us, but to his followers, they could be signals or messages. So my question is, why is a convicted murderer and cult leader allowed to keep communicating with the public in ways that could reignite his followers? And is there any legal way to stop that? Thank you, Joshua. I look forward to your response. Bye.
Raffaella from Australia. Thank you so much. Let's put Australia on the map. Good to hear from you. Say hello to all of our friends in Australia. Chad Daybell. Here I said people are not happy with Chad Daybell having. I imagine that you are not in the middle of the outback, Raffaella, but we would love to hear what city specifically next time you call in. But thank you for calling. Chad Daybell, cult leader. What's he doing? Why is he allowed to send out letters? Why does he have a website? I get it. I get why everybody's indignant. Think about it this way, though. Had Chad Daybell never been arrested and convicted of a crime, would we be trying to shut down his speech? No, we wouldn't. Simply for there are plenty of cult leaders out there. There's plenty of people saying a bunch of nonsense all the time, always, and a bunch of people listening to it. And we don't shut it down unless you are inciting violence or something else constitutionally abusive of the Constitution. We're going to allow you to say whatever crazy stuff you want to say. And that doesn't change just because you became a convicted killer. So he still has a constitutional right to say what he wants to say and communicate that to people as long as it follows the rules of his custody. Well, he's following those rules by sending out letters to his daughter, which he's allowed to do. And she's then taking those letters and publishing them on the internet, which she's allowed to do. Now, are they allowed to try, like I said before, say, hey, everybody who follows me, come break down the walls of the prison? No. Is he allowed to conduct business, that he's not allowed to or that he's prevented from conducting by this means? Is he allowed to communicate with Lori? How about that? I don't know what access to the internet Lori has. Is he communicating with her by means of this? Will she start communicating with him in the same means? It's diabolical, awful stuff, and it's going to drive you nuts. But here's the problem. There's nothing illegal about it. And there's no way that I see, short of him being put in some sort of segregation, you know, they throw him into the hole for punishment, that will stop it. And I'm not saying they'll throw him in the hole because he's writing letters. He's allowed to write letters. Lots of prisoners write letters. It's just lots of prisoners don't have websites publishing them, and they weren't prior cult leaders. So I get it. Thank you for Rafaela. I get it. Like I said, I think the best way to handle this is just to ignore it into oblivion. Anyhow, where are we at? Oh, we're coming down to the last few here, guys. Last few questions. What did we cover today? Lots of Daybell, lots of Ramsey and Adelson, Amanda Knox. Good stuff. Fun show. You guys are fantastic. Always asking the best questions and the most insightful questions, I think. You've certainly given me a run for my money. So thank you, everybody. All right, let's keep it rolling here.
Good day, Mr. Ritter. My name is Kiona, and I'm calling from a town called Valley Center, California, located in North San Diego County. Thank you for considering my question. So I watched the murder trial of Florida versus Jose Soto Escalera this week, and he was convicted today of the murder of his pregnant girlfriend. There was compelling evidence against him of audio recordings of him admitting to the planning and committing the crime. My question, however, is about recordings that were excluded from the jury. During argument outside the jury's presence, the defense implied that there's additional recordings of the defendant admitting to a previous murder that he says he got away with. So my question is that, is there a judiciary duty on the part of any of the attorneys or even the judge to pass those recordings on to law enforcement? It was baffling to hear that there was evidence like that on those recordings, and I would think that there might be some unresolved or unsolved murder out there that perhaps they could interrogate this defendant even further to hopefully solve that. So again, I want to thank you for your channel. I've learned so much from not only you, but the questions of the other people in your channel. So again, thank you so very much.
Oh, thank you, Kiona. That's such a nice thing to say. That made me feel good. From Valley Center, California. Let's put you on the map there. Great question. So this is a horrible case that we talked a little bit about, didn't get all that much into on this channel because there's just so much other stuff going on. But I know a lot of you followed it. I think Court TV had it. He was charged with the murder of his a person he was having an affair with and had allegedly impregnated a woman by the name of Tanya Wise. She was 8 months pregnant at the time. He apparently strangled and slit her throat and then threw her into a drainage ditch. Really awful case. And he just got convicted, and he's likely going to be sentenced to the death penalty. Now, outside of the presence of the jury, as Kiona points out, there was jailhouse calls where he is talking about having committed another murder. First, let me say this. Yes, they're looking into it. I don't know that. Nobody's told me that, but I can almost guarantee you they're looking into it. This is the kind of stuff detectives wake up for. If this guy's actually saying he's involved in another murder, they're going to try to pin it on him. They're going to try to find out what it is, what other evidence links him to it. They may even already know or have suspected he was good for another murder, and now this just helps them further their cause. So it's not something that's going to get buried and forgotten about and swept under the rug. They're looking into this for sure. But though you didn't ask this question, I think it's important to consider too, why wasn't that? If the guy's admitting to another murder, why wasn't that brought up in court, and why didn't the jury learn about it? And it brings up an issue that we talk about quite a bit, and a concept that we're all very familiar with, and that is the idea of evidence of prior bad acts and whether or not they are more probative or prejudicial, and whether or not they can be admitted in this trial because they qualify as something other than character evidence. Anytime you're talking about prior bad acts, you have to show why you want to introduce this that isn't just merely to attack the character of the defendant. Are you introducing the fact that he may have committed another murder to say he's a murderer murderer and murderer's murder, and therefore he committed this murder, you can't do that. But if you're introducing it to say, well, listen, he follows this very specific scheme. He has affairs, and then they get pregnant, and then he kills them. And he did that before. And so therefore, you can believe that was the same kind of MO that he was following here. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened in the previous murder. I'm saying that's an argument that they could make hypothetically. And then the judge is going to have to weigh probative and prejudicial value. Maybe it's highly probative that he said he committed another murder, but it's so prejudicial and that the jury will convict him based upon that and not upon the evidence of whether or not he committed this murder. Last thing I'll say on this is there's another rule that we've talked about before, which is called the idea of the corpus cop-out rule, meaning you need more than just a person saying, I did it, to link them to a crime. You need corroboration. So he may have even said who he killed. I killed Josh Ritter. But unless there's some sort of corroborating evidence to link him to that, they're not going to go after him for that crime alone, and they're certainly not going to admit it as evidence. So interesting concepts, all brought up in one case, and we thank you for that, Kiona from Valley Center, California. All right. It's our final three here, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, Josh. Hello, CC crew. My name is Deshay, and I'm from Philadelphia. My question is about the motion for new trial, I think it is, that was filed in Donna Adelson's case this week. I wanted to know specifically where the line is between zealous advocacy for your client and presenting the arguments in your motion in a factual way, because I feel like there was several points in that particular motion where I feel like that line was crossed. So I wanted to know your thoughts. Also, why did the defense seem so disrespectful to some of the prosecution witnesses, like Louise Rivera and Katie McVanawaz, to be specific? Just some of their comments came off to me as really quite rude for no reason. If don't respond, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it didn't sit right. And I just want to know your thoughts. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks.
Nishay, thank you. Nishay from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Let's put you on the map. Thank you so much. I like this question. I appreciate you asking it. We're talking about Donna Adelson. I know that her defense attorneys received a lot of heat, a lot of criticism. Some of that I think is deserved, and some of that not entirely deserved, and I'll explain to you why. Many times in these cases where you see a defense attorney just kind of getting out of hand and putting on a show, you got to realize, oh, there's Nishay. Nishay's an extraordinary machine. Yes, you are. Many times in these cases, they are performing to an audience of one. Okay? And who knows the conversations taking place between Donna Adelson and her attorneys? And who knows how much she was telling them, you got to go after this person. I want fire and brimstone. I want you. You're not being aggressive enough. That's what's happening a lot. A lot of time they are putting on a show for an audience of one. And that may be ineffective with the audience of 12 that happen to be the most important people in the room. But this is their client, and this is whose life's at stake. And if that's the way they want it handled, then that's the way they want it handled. The other thing I'll say is that you can get as nasty and aggressive as you want as long as you read the room. Alan Jackson defended Karen Reed, and he came after a lot of these witnesses. And you could argue that the way he treated them during cross-examination was very nasty and very disrespectful. But he obviously felt like he read the room, and he felt like the jurors were along for the ride, and he felt like the witnesses were giving him permission to do exactly that. And it was obviously effective. So a lot of this is not so much a stylistic thing as it is a knowing when to turn up and turn down the dial depending on the atmosphere in which you're performing. And I think that the attorneys in Adelson may have missed that mark. But great question, Nishay. Appreciate you asking, and appreciate you putting Philadelphia on the map for us today. All right. Who's up next?
Hello, Courtroom Confidential. Happy Sunday Fun Day to everybody. So I'm a little, I just was listening to the details of Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew, that case. I had no idea there was so much drama. By drama, I mean people getting disbarred and Barry walking, even though they were obviously allowed to press charges again. And then they find her body and now they're back. But what I'm asking is, in the case of Brian Walsh and Suzanne Walsh, could that happen in that case? Because that's a nobody case. And I know there's been some evidence, although barred, although I'm hearing it's full force ahead. But anyway, could that happen here? Thank you. Bye, guys. Always look forward to what you have to say, Josh. And thanks for all that you guys do. Appreciate all your hard work. Bye.
Sonia, aka Shy Gal from Chicago, Illinois. Let's put you back on the map. I've just been given a alert, and it is my understanding that we are now just a mere 20 subscribers away from hitting another milestone of 58,000. So bug the person who's in the room next to you. Go to your neighbor and knock on their door. Call up your boss who you didn't like from 3 jobs ago and say, hop on the internet and subscribe right now. And let's see if we can't get us over that hump while we're here on the air. Please share the channel with someone you think that might enjoy it, says Kaylin. She's being much nicer about it than me. I'm telling you to pound on people's doors. Come on, 58, says Alicia K. Mayo. Sonia, thank you so much for asking the question. Always great to hear from you. Appreciate all that you do for this channel. And you want to know, are we going to run into the same issues in the Brian Walsh case as we did in the Barry Morphew case? These are 2 cases, by the way, that I am really looking forward to watching. And I don't mean to say that to disrespect the fact that people have lost their lives and to turn this into a spectator sport. But I really feel like this is going to be interesting to see how prosecutors lay this out, how the defense arguments are formed. Obviously, we're talking about Barry Morphew is accused of the murder of his wife, Suzanne Morphew. Her body was missing for a long period of time till they did discover her remains. And then her remains miraculously led to the case against him being far stronger. It had been dismissed, then they refiled, and now it's a much stronger case. Brian Walsh out of Massachusetts, again, accused of murdering his wife. Her body has never been found. And Sonia, his wife's name was Anna. Sonia wants to know, are we going to see that same thing here where they might recover her body and then it might become a stronger case? And then, what do we do? And is the case weak right now? I think the big difference between these two is the case against Barry Morphew was really circumstantial, was going to be a difficult case. I really believe so. It was going to be a real tough case for the prosecution. And I think it was actually a blessing in disguise that they dismissed it, then discovered her remains, and now it's a much stronger case, a very compelling case based upon what they were able to forensically recover from literally the marrow of her bones. She was bones by the time they found her remains. Brian Walsh and Anna Walsh is a little bit different because I think the case against him is much stronger now. And so the discovery of her body, I don't think is necessary for them to prove his guilt. Again, innocent until proven guilty, but here's what we've got. We've got, first of all, the last person she was ever seen alive with is her husband. They've got surveillance video of him in the days after she goes missing. This is New Year's Day of 2023, I think it was. Is that right? Kaylin says yes, though she's confirmed it none at all. I can tell. This is video surveillance of him like at a Home Depot picking up a bunch of cleaning supplies. Is there nothing more guilty on earth than a man walking out with a cart full of bleach and mops and buckets? I mean, what are you up to, buddy? Your wife's missing. You don't report her missing. Yes, it was 2023. Her job reports her missing. Then he reports her missing. And he's already bought a bunch of cleaning supplies. Then he's also seen on surveillance disposing of different items at different garbage dumpsters throughout the Cohasset area, going around, sprinkling around what are believed to be perhaps remains and bloody cleanup supplies. Then we have that he cleaned his vehicle, newly cleaned his vehicle. Law enforcement noticed that. And then you can hear it coming before it comes out of my mouth, the Google searches. And he's searching for things like, you know, how to clean blood, the smell of a decomposing body. I think even how quickly to inherit life insurance after somebody's death. I mean, it's just such damaging evidence against him. There is more surveillance of him. I think this is him disposing of items throughout the area. Uncle Google gonna get you. That's absolutely true, Sonia. So I think this case that they have right now is very strong, and the recovery of her remains, though it might have been helpful, is not going to be a game changer like it was in the Morphew case. All right, everybody. Tears all around. Thank you so much, Shy Gal, for gifting the membership. Appreciate that. Tears all around. Who's bringing it home for us today?
Hi, Josh. This is Maureen from Monterey. I apologize. My voice is a little bit hoarse tonight. I'm not sure why. And I'm just getting this question in under the wire. So if you have a million questions and you don't want to use this one, that's fine. But sometime last week, I think it was, you were talking about, and I forget which case it was. I apologize for my horrendous memory. But you were talking about a case, and you mentioned that a magistrate ruled on something. And I was wondering what the difference is between a magistrate and a judge, and if that is something that varies from state to state, like a lot of things do when it comes to the law. So I would love your explanation on that, because this is something I've actually wondered in the past. So thanks a lot, Josh. Love Sunday Fun Day. Bye-bye.
Maureen from Monterey. So glad we were able to get to your question this week. Let's put you back on the map. Monterey, beautiful Monterey, California. All right. Yes. Great question too. And I appreciate you asking, because sometimes I throw these terms around expecting us to all know what we're talking about. But what is the difference between a magistrate and a judge? And I think the case that the last case I can think of where this even became an issue is in this horrific case out of Charlotte, North Carolina, of the murder of Irina Zarutska. There she is. She is a Ukrainian refugee. She was in North Carolina trying to make a life for herself, and she was attacked, unprovoked, random act of violence by a man by the name of Decarlos Brown, sitting behind her, stands up, stabs her in the neck, takes her life. It's horrific. She dies all alone, crying and scared. It just awful case. And so it's become, it received a lot of attention because of this video, and also a lot of attention because of who Decarlos Brown is. And we know that he's got 14 prior arrests and convictions. And he's got a history of mental health issues. And even his own family has said, we need to do something about him. He's got mental health problems and he's violent. And he was let out for his arrest prior to this by a magistrate. So a lot of people are going, what's a magistrate? The magistrate's name was Teresa Stokes. A magistrate, just to get to the nuts and bolts of it, is not a judge, but serves as a judge for limited purposes. They have a limited jurisdiction. They usually only handle misdemeanor cases, bail issues, pretrial issues, arraignments, prelims, all things before an actual trial. I don't think you'd ever have a magistrate handle a felony trial. And the reason that they exist is sometimes there's just a need for more judges in an area, and they're busy and they need more work. And there's a lot of this kind of busy work that needs to be done by a person sitting in the position of a judge, but they decided that they don't actually need a judge to do that. We deal with them all the time here in Los Angeles. You have to stipulate to them. In other words, when you go in front of a magistrate, they will ask, do you stipulate to me overseeing this case for this limited purpose? And you can say no. No, I don't. And then you get kicked to another courtroom in front of an actual judge. They are appointed by the judges. They're not appointed by the governor like a judge might be. They're appointed by the presiding judge of that area, just to be a person to kind of fill this limited role. I've known people who've done this. I've known working attorneys who will sit as judges, magistrates in traffic court or in small claims court, or, these kind of limited purposes. But where I'm shocked about in this case with Teresa Stokes is my understanding is she's not even a lawyer. And that's where people really began to go, wait. It's one thing if you're not an elected judge, you're not an appointed judge, but it's another thing if you're not even a lawyer at all. Isn't there a threshold at which even these low-level kind of busy work stuff should be handled by a judge? She's been falling under a lot of criticism for that, falling under a lot of criticism for allowing Decarlos Brown to even be a free man. And a lot of people believe that had he remained in custody, he would not have committed the horrific crime that he did. I'm not going to get into all of it right now. I think there's a lot of things at play here. I do think that it was a mistake for him to ever have been granted release. A person, the people have said, well, listen, he was the crime that he was accused of was, falsely calling 911. That's not a crime of violence. That's true. And most people would be released on their own recognizance, having been accused of that crime. But most people don't have 14 prior felony convictions exhibiting violence and a history of mental health. And you can base bail upon those other factors as well. And the fact that it wasn't done here did, I think, in part lead to this catastrophe. Not that it's like this person should be held responsible, but this person should not have been walking amongst us to commit this kind of violence. And it's really horrific the way in which she lost her life. All right, Maureen and everybody else, thank you so much. You guys are fantastic for leaving these questions again. Smartest community on YouTube. Fight me. Fight me if you disagree. All right. First of all, if you're watching this and you're saying to yourself, well, I want in on the fun. Why wasn't I able to ask a question? Well, you are. You just need to go to thecourtroomconfidential.com, click on the leave us a message button, and you can leave a message that we will answer at a future Sunday Fun Day. If you are thinking to yourself, well, this looks fun. I see everybody who's members. I want to be a member. Well, you should. And you can also go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on become a member and learn about all of the benefits. Jen Pookie says, thank you so much, Josh, Mobs, and chat. Well, thank you so much for being a member for 2 months. So check out our membership, all of the different levels that we have at the membership chat tab on thecourtroomconfidential.com. Merch. What am I wearing today? What is this? Peach, apricot, Terracotta. I'm just getting nods out of Kaylin. What is it, Tiff? Tell us. Tang? Oh, I like that one, says Mimi D. Princess Peach, says Teresa Robinson. Apricot, says Sky Goodness. Orangesicle, that's a good one. No, it's not. Orangesicle Princess, it is not called that. But anyhow, let us know what the actual name of this is. Princess Peach, says Teresa. If you want to buy this shirt or any of the other colors and styles that we have, go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and click on the shop. What you missed on Saturday, we had our weekly roundup where we talked about Tyler Robinson, Luigi Mangione, the Menendez brothers, Donna Adelson, a bunch of other topics that you guys are very concerned with. Please check that out. It's already up. And we also did our members only live for the month of September. We do monthly members only lives. If you are in our classified and above category on the membership categories, every month we do a members only live, and it's really fun. It's about an hour long. We do a bunch of behind the scenes stuff and talk about just kind of silly things and what we're reading and what we're watching, and it's a good time. You get to hear some stories and everything else, so it's a fun perk, and we hope you guys check it out. That is already up. If you guys missed it, please check it out, and if you want to check out the future ones and be a part of that, well, then join our membership program. Stay tuned this Monday. Well, actually, stay tuned this evening. I'm going to be on the interview room with Chris McDonough. Again, please check that out. Would love to have you guys show up and send some Courtroom Confidential love his way and let him know we roll deep at Courtroom Confidential. Then on Monday, I'm going to be doing a solo live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about everything that's coming up this week. These people are all in court. You remember him, Barry Morphew. There's Brian Walsh, Rex Heuerman. They've all got updates coming up this week, so we'll be talking about all of that. Wednesday, we're still working on a guest. That's to be determined, but we will be live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, both on Monday and Wednesday. CrimeCon, again, don't want to miss out sharing that with you guys. We have a discount code. It is courtroom, all caps, all one word. CrimeCon coming up in Vegas, May 29th through 31st, 2026. Don't miss out. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. Would love to see you all there. Give you hugs, take pictures, all that good stuff. And I think that's it. I think that's it. I don't think I missed anything. I think I covered it up. What time is the interview room? Oh, I did miss something. There you go. Jadzia says, what time is interview room? That is coming up at 5 p.m. tonight, right? 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on the interview room channel. So please check that out. Thank you so much to our mods, Afton and Sonia and Kathy and therapists. You guys are all fantastic. Appreciate everything that you do, keeping us all happy and in line. Kaylin, what can I say? You make it all happen. It's all smooth and seamless, and you deal with me every single week, so I appreciate that. And Tiffany, as always, thank you for being the best thing that happened to me and taking care of our 3 beautiful little girls. And have a great rest of your Sunday, everybody. Hopefully I'll see you tonight. Take care.